Desperation has a funny way of dulling your instincts. That primal feeling that tells you to run, to avoid places like the one I found on a cold October night. But when you're out of money and hope, strange choices seem less foolish. That's how I ended up in front of a bar whose name flickered in half-dead neon Forever Bar. Its red glow pierced the dark street, casting shadows that felt alive, whispering for me to turn away. I didn't listen. Inside, the bar seemed stuck in time. The air was thick with cigarette smoke, and the smell of whiskey seeped into everything like it had soaked the wood for decades. The patrons, though few, looked less like people and more like ghosts of themselves, empty stares and hollow movements. An old bartender eyed me from behind the counter. His skin was pale, almost translucent, his eyes cold and colorless. When I asked about the job, his only words were, "Stick to the rules, Kevin." My stomach twisted. How did he know my name? But I shook off the fear and headed to the back to read the rules. The cramped, musty room was covered in old photos, all slightly blurred, faces twisted into grimaces. My eyes locked onto a list pinned to the wall. Each rule chilled me to my core. Lock the doors at midnight. Never serve drinks past 3 a.m. Don't look into the mirror after 2:30 a.m. But what disturbed me most was the final rule: play something on the guitar before your shift ends. Why? I couldn't let fear win. I needed the money. I stepped behind the bar, rolling up my sleeves, trying to focus on the task at hand. But the patrons were strange to slow, to deliberate, like they were struggling to remember how to interact. One woman kept ordering drinks, but refused to touch them, grabbing my wrist with an icy grip each time I tried to clear them away. Time warped. Hours felt like seconds, and seconds stretched for an eternity. The atmosphere thickened, a palpable tension growing with each passing minute. At exactly midnight, I locked the door, just as the rule said. The click of the lock echoed unnaturally, like the world itself had shifted. Suddenly, all eyes were on me. Their stares were sharper now, more intense, like they were watching every move, waiting for something to happen. The clock ticked louder in my ears, and the bar seemed to breathe, walls closing in, shadows deepening. Then, at 1:30 a.m., the jukebox started up on its own. A haunting melody filled the room, a sound so eerie it sent chills down my spine. I remembered the rule: don't stop the music. So I didn't, but as the song played, something began to change in the patrons. Their faces contorted, expressions turning from vacant to terrified, as if they were trapped in a nightmare they couldn't escape. The air grew heavy with something more than just smoke. It was a darkness, alive and watching. I poured drinks with trembling hands, too afraid to break any of the rules, too afraid to stop. As 2:30 approached, my gaze flickered to the mirror behind the bar. It seemed to pulse with life, whispering my name softly, calling me. I fought the urge to look, remembering the warning, but the whispers grew louder, insistent. The faces in the mirror weren't mine, they were distorted versions of the patrons, their mouths twisted in silent screams, their eyes hollow and pleading. I squeezed my eyes shut, trying to block it all out, but the sounds, the music, the whispers, the silence of the patrons pressed in on me from all sides. The final rule gnawed at my mind: play something on the guitar before your shift ends. My fingers shook as I picked up the old guitar that had been gathering dust in the corner. The strings felt cold under my touch, and the room seemed to hold its breath as I played the first note. The melody that emerged wasn't one I'd ever learned, but my fingers moved on their own, playing a song that felt older than time itself. The patrons, those ghostly figures, began to sway to the music, their vacant eyes locking onto me. And then, one by one, they disappeared, fading into the shadows, leaving me alone in the dimly lit bar with nothing but the haunting notes of the guitar echoing in the still air. The mirror behind me went silent. The jukebox stopped. The bar was empty, except for the old bartender, who appeared once more, his eyes reflecting something dark and ancient. "You've played your part well, Kevin," he said, his voice a low growl. "But you'll be back. They always come back." And as I walked out into the cold night, the neon sign above flickered again, burning brighter. I knew I wouldn't escape this place, not really. Forever Bar had claimed me.